Hello and welcome to F1 News Today. I'm Tom Horrox. Eagle-eyed viewers will notice I sound a little different to Tilly, and we can announce as a Grid Talk exclusive that with all the speculation surrounding the second-seated Alfa, Tilly's head was indeed turned and she has left to chase her dreams of becoming F1's first AI driver. But we move on, and that means we're revamping the F1 News podcast. It will be published twice weekly, and one of the Grid Talk podcast hosts you know and love will be your guide through the headlines. So let's take a look at what's making the news in the world of Formula 1 today. First up, Lewis Hamilton is still kicking himself for pitting on Sunday. He was quoted as saying, "I should have trusted my gut." He was heard telling engineer Pete Bonington over the radio, "We shouldn't have come in, I told you." After the race, when emotions had died down, Hamilton clarified his comments, saying, "It felt good to be in third, and I was like, if we could hold on to this is a great result from 11th. This is worse, but it could be a lot worse." He went on to say, "I think probably in hindsight I should have either stayed out or come in much earlier, because when you come in with 8 laps to go, you don't have time to go through that graining phase on a drying track. So then I went through this whole sliding phase where I nearly lost more positions. So yes, a bit frustrating, but it is what it is. I feel like we should have stayed out. My gut feeling was to stay out, and I feel that's what I should have done. So I'm frustrated in myself for not following my gut. But I work as a team, so I did the best I could with the advice I was getting." An interesting debrief would follow that's for certain. Staying with Hamilton, if he had had his way and stayed out, he may have been looking at a much worse result than 5th, according to Pirelli's head of F1, Mario Isola. Speaking to Sky Sports, Isola said, "Looking at the tyres after the race, I would say no, or at least it was really on the limit. The wear of the tyres, especially at the end of the race, they were running basically on the construction. It was a bit dangerous to push the boundaries, but I fully understand that in race conditions they have to maximise their results." Hamilton had spoken about the example of Esteban Ocon when explaining why he wanted to stay out. However, Isola explained that it wasn't a like-for-like comparison. Every car is different, so the level of wear is different, also depending on how hard during the race they push. But more or less, all the tyres had exposed cords. Not only on Ocon's car, most of the cars that stopped after lap 47-48 were completely finished. We know the new tarmac is more abrasive and has more grip compared to last year, and the track was not dry but still abrasive, so really was at the limit. I was suggesting to our allocated engineers to warn the teams to change the tyres and not to go to the end because it was a risky move. After some of the tyre issues we've seen recently, it was nice not to have a repeat performance this weekend. What do you think Hamilton should have done? Was he right to stay out? Should he have just ignored his call to pit? Or should he have followed suit and pitted with everyone else? Let us know in the comments. Speaking of tyres in Turkey, after completing all 58 laps on one set of Pirellis, Esteban Ocon wants to hang his point-scoring tyre on the Alpine factory wall. Ocon said, "I don't know when is the last time that nobody had a pit stop. It was a risk today that we took. It paid off in the end because we got a point out of it. It doesn't look great, that tyre. I think we'll hang it on the wall in the factory." There was a lot of discussion, but in my head it was clear that we had to try and get something out of that. Last year I had an incident on the first lap, and basically from there on I drove on intermediates the whole race as well. So I thought if last year was the case, maybe this year we could do the same, and this year we did one more lap than that, so it was good. It was tricky at the end, a couple more corners and I would have lost that point. It's good to have a reward in the end. I'm pretty pleased to get that point for everybody. One more lap, I think we would have got a puncture. It was a risky bet, but we made it work. Kimi Raikkonen was faster, but stuck behind Antonio Giovinazzi early on. The team did not switch them, or Giovinazzi ignored the call. There was something on the radio where they told Kimi after the race, Antonio was told, but I can't really get anyone to confirm whether Antonio Giovinazzi ignored a team order or not. But that is what it sounded like, from the team radio message at least anyway, and maybe that will come out in Austin. Kimi Raikkonen was then stuck behind Yuki Tsunoda. "Cannot get past," he said. Giovinazzi was sort of in Nowheresville, but they were closing. They could have got Ocon at the end, but they didn't manage to, so lost out on some points. For his part, Giovinazzi played with a straight bat, saying, "We were just one lap away from being in the points, and that is really frustrating. The race wasn't bad, despite starting from the back as a result of yesterday's qualifying, which made everything harder. We gave it our best, unfortunately it wasn't enough. For the smallest margin, just for 1 second. We had good pace in the last couple of races, so let's focus on getting back in the points for the next race in Austin. We'll keep an eye on this one for any juicy developments." Finally, a piece of F1 history could be lost to the sands of time, with the Adelaide City Councillor Greg Mackey reportedly backing Parkland's residents group who want to see the now unused part of the old Adelaide circuit ripped up. Talking to the Adelaide Advertiser newspaper, Mackie said, "I was asking that council administration prepares a report outlining the steps to achieve a new landscape solution that will eventually provide natural shade amenity for park users, now that horse and car racing has concluded. A new landscape plan need not assume removal of all hard surfaces, but I would hope that a reduction could eventually be achieved." However, government opposition leader Peter Malinowskis has also called the idea harebrained and has already signed a deal that would see Australia's V8 supercar racing return to the venue if he wins the state election in March. Speaking on the Adelaide radio, Malinowskis said, "What is Greg coming up with is harebrained ideas to basically take the single biggest attraction in Victoria Park out of it. I've made a crystal clear commitment and I've signed an agreement with Supercars that if Labour wins the next state election, we are bringing that race back. I'm not doing it because I'm a motorsport fan, I'm doing that because I believe in the jobs it brings and we want our city to be alive again, particularly post-Covid. We're going to bring it back if we win, so we hope the track stays for short term for that reason. I take my kids to practice riding their bike there. We're teaching my son at the moment to ride a bike and it's the best place in Adelaide to do it. There's cafes there that are dependent on the foot trade. It's actually fantastic. I think Greg needs to spend a Saturday morning hanging out at Victoria Park to see what people are using before he starts ripping up the infrastructure. I don't understand why people are so obsessed with turning Victoria Park into an area that South Australians can't enjoy. This is an amazing location and it's an amazing part of our parkland. We should be trying to get people to use it rather than the opposite." After speaking with some of our colleagues in Australia, they have said this does seem a very Adelaide thing to do. Here's hoping common sense prevails and a famous old circuit lives to fight another day. That's it for today. We'll be back on Thursday with the next instalment of F1 News Today. We are powered by F1 Chronicle. Make sure you visit f1chronicle.com for more news and subscribe to F1 Chronicle YouTube channel so you never miss an episode of F1 News Today. See you soon for the next update. Goodbye.